I never thought I would be the person standing in the middle of a crowded living room, being screamed at by my own father while 30 of our closest relatives watched in stunned silence. The humiliation was so thick I could practically taste it, like copper in my mouth, as he pointed a trembling finger at my face and told me I was grounded, stripped of my inheritance, and no longer welcome in his home. It was my grandmother's 80th birthday party, a day that was supposed to be about family and legacy, but instead, it became the day my life imploded. Or so he thought. Just as he was finishing his public execution of my character, the front door opened, and his personal estate lawyer walked in carrying a leather briefcase and a look of grim determination that changed everything. Before I tell you how a single manila folder turned my father's face from bright purple to ghost white, I have to ask you something honestly. If your own flesh and blood tried to destroy your reputation to cover their own tracks, how far would you go to make sure the truth came out? Would you let them burn your world down, or would you provide the matches? To understand how we got to that explosive moment in the living room, you have to understand the dynamic of the Miller family. My dad, Robert, has always been a man who cared more about optics than actual substance. He's a successful developer, or at least he plays one on TV and in the local papers. Growing up, my life was a series of curated photos and rehearsed manners. If I didn't look the part of the perfect son, I was an inconvenience. My mom passed away when I was 10, and after that, the pressure to be the heir apparent only intensified. But there was a secret rotting at the foundation of our big, beautiful house. For the last 3 years, since I finished my MBA and started working at the family firm, I started noticing things. Numbers that didn't add up, subcontractors who weren't getting paid, and consulting fees being funneled into accounts I didn't recognize. When I brought it up to my dad, he'd just pat me on the shoulder and tell me I was still learning the ropes. But I wasn't just learning, I was documenting. The real trouble started 6 months ago when my dad met Alina. She was 20 years younger than him, sharp as a razor, and clearly had her sights set on more than just his heart. Within weeks, she was influencing his business decisions, and suddenly I was being pushed out of the inner circle. The more I questioned her presence in our board meetings, the more my dad turned against me. He started telling our relatives that I was struggling with personal issues, a code word for suggesting I was back on the bottle or losing my mind. It was a calculated smear campaign designed to make sure that when he finally cut me out, everyone would think it was for my own good. He wanted the world to believe I was the failure so he could stay the hero. The tension reached a breaking point leading up to my grandmother's birthday. This was the big event of the year, a black tie optional dinner at our estate where the entire extended clan gathered. My dad had been acting increasingly erratic, and I found out through a contact in the accounting department that he was planning to sign over a significant portion of the family trust to Alina's new charity venture. It was a blatant embezzlement scheme, and he knew I had the proof to stop it. He needed to discredit me before I could speak up. So, halfway through the appetizers, in front of aunts, uncles, cousins, and family friends, he staged a confrontation. He accused me of stealing from the company to fund a gambling habit I've never had. He stood on the landing of the grand staircase, his voice booming so everyone could hear. He called me a disappointment, a thief, and a liar. He told me I was grounded like I was a child, confined to my room until the party was over, at which point he'd have my bags packed. The silence that followed was deafening. My Aunt Sarah gasped, and my cousins whispered behind their hands. I stood there, feeling the heat of 30 sets of eyes on me, some filled with pity and others with disgust. I looked at Alina, who was standing right behind him with a small, triumphant smirk on her face. He really thought he had won. He thought that by humiliating me in front of the people whose opinions I valued most, I would just slink away and let him get away with it. But he forgot one thing. I am my mother's son, and she was the one who actually built this business from the ground up. So there I was, standing in the center of the room while my father tried to ruin my life to protect his mistress and his ego. I had the documents in my car, but I knew that if I just started shouting about bank statements, nobody would believe the unstable son over the successful father. I had to wait for the one person who could actually verify the truth. This is the moment where I realized my entire future was on the line. I knew the truth was about to walk through that door, but I also knew it would destroy my family forever. Before I tell you what was in those papers and how my dad's lawyer ended his career in 30 seconds, I want you to pause. Think about the people you trust most. If you found out they were betraying everything you stood for, would you stay silent to keep the peace, or would you blow it all up for the sake of the truth? Let me know in the comments right now. Would you have stayed for the fight or walked away? The front door opened just as my dad was telling me to get out of his sight. In walked Mr. Henderson, my dad's personal attorney for the last 25 years. He wasn't supposed to be there. It was a Saturday evening. My dad looked confused, his face still flushed from his rant. He tried to play it off, welcoming Henderson to the party, but Henderson didn't smile. He didn't even look at my father. He looked at me, gave a small nod, and then turned to the room. He held up a thick envelope and said, "Robert, we need to discuss the audit. Now." My dad tried to usher him into the study, but I stepped forward. I told him no. I told him that since he wanted to discuss my character in front of the whole family, we should discuss the company's finances in front of them too. Henderson didn't hesitate. He opened the file and began to read. He didn't just talk about the consulting fees. He revealed that my father had been using the family trust, money meant for my grandmother's care, and the younger cousin's college funds, to pay off massive debts Alina had incurred at offshore casinos. The gambling habit my father accused me of, it was his own. The theft he blamed on me, it was the money he'd been siphoning to keep Alina from leaving him. The lawyer explained that I hadn't been stealing. I had been the one who contacted the firm to trigger an emergency audit to protect the family's assets. The room went from silent to chaotic in an instant. My grandmother, who had been sitting in her armchair looking frail, stood up with a strength I hadn't seen in years. She walked over to my father and didn't say a word. She just took the glass of champagne out of his hand and poured it onto his expensive shoes. Alina tried to bolt for the door, but my Aunt Sarah, who never liked her anyway, blocked the exit. It was a total collapse. My dad tried to claim the lawyer was lying, that I had bribed him, but Henderson just pulled out the signed transfer orders with my father's own signature on them. He had been caught red-handed, and the worst part for him was that he had invited the entire jury to watch the execution. The aftermath was swift and brutal. My father was forced to step down from the board, and because of the evidence I'd gathered with Henderson's help, we were able to freeze the remaining assets before Alina could disappear with them. She left him the next day, of course. Without the money, he wasn't nearly as charming as he thought he was. My grandmother ended up redrawing her will, making me the sole executor of the family estate, ensuring that the cousin's education and the family's legacy stayed intact. My father now lives in a modest condo 3 towns over, funded by a strictly controlled allowance from the very trust he tried to drain. We don't speak much, and when we do, he still blames me for betraying him. He still can't see that he was the one who threw the first punch. Looking back, I don't regret a single thing. Sometimes, the only way to save a family is to expose the rot at its core, even if it means losing the person who was supposed to protect you. It's a hard lesson to learn, but the truth doesn't care about your feelings or your reputation. It only cares about being heard. If you ever find yourself in a position where the people you love are asking you to lie for them, remember that a lie is just a debt you eventually have to pay back with interest. I hope this story reminds you to always keep your receipts and never let anyone gaslight you into believing you're the villain of your own life. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more like it, make sure to hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow and lets me know you're on my side. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. What do you think about how I handled my dad? Was I too harsh, or did he get exactly what he deserved? Share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section below. I'll be reading through them. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you all in the next story.